Good morning, everybody. It's Laura Peterson. I'm your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So wanted to let you know a lot of great things are happening out there in the market today. Good for buyers for sure at the moment. You know, if you compared it to about 3 years ago in regards to what was going on, buyers had no choices. They were picking whatever house that they could, and they were, being bid up for it. There were no seller concessions. There was really a lot of challenges for the buyers. And today there are still challenges for the buyers as well as for the sellers, but it's different. And so, you know, when you've been in the business long enough, and you've gone through these ups and downs and changes and all that kind of good stuff, it's always very interesting. And I've got the monthly statistics right now. I mean, we're June. Can you believe it? We're into June. But basically, this is what happened in April, that I've got the statistics and everything for us here. And basically, when you're looking at last year in 2024 versus this year, the prices have really kind of stabilized. They have not changed too much. They did actually go up. If you're looking at the average price, now this includes houses, condos, townhouses, everything. The average price was at $476,374 versus 2024 was $475,122. So difference of only 0.3% that it went up. The median price is at $389,900, and it was at $388,500, so that's a 0.4% increase. So we have not decreased at all. I mean, there's pockets obviously there's pockets that have gone up, and that's why real estate is so local and everything when you're looking at it. But year over year, we're pretty consistent in regards to the price and everything of what we've got going on. If we look at it versus 2 years ago, in 2023, the median price was $370, and now it's $389,900. The average price was $444,718, and now it's $476,374. So really, quite a big difference from 2023 to today. But still, we're kind of flat at the moment. Now, the big news is, in my opinion, is the inventory and where we're at in regards to that. Basically, the bottom line is that when you're looking at the inventory, that in 2023, of all of the properties that we had on the market, there were 5,148. Today, there are 13,304. So in 2024, it went up to 9,378, and then it made the jump to 13,000. So that's up significantly. So when you've got inventory, obviously that means that there's more room to bargain, more room to play around and all that kind of good stuff. The other interesting thing that I found for the month that I thought was also interesting was the number of properties that actually sold. And they're pretty similar, but they're down a little bit. In 2023, in the month of April, there were 2,766 properties that sold. In 24, there were 2,759. So it was only a difference of, less than 10. Actually, 7 properties was the difference. But between 24 and 25, the number went down to 2,459, which obviously is about 300, right? 301, basically it is, or 299. And that's a 10.9% decrease in the number of properties that sold. So that'll be something for us to watch as the months go on and everything in regards to what we're looking at. When you're looking at the interest rates and all of that kind of stuff, and how they looked in 23, they were at 6.41. The average for 24 was 6.91, and for 23 was 6.64. Now the interest rates have gone up again, and they kind of bounce around. They go up and down all the time. I was actually with a mortgage broker a couple of days ago, and she was like, yeah, they just go up and down and around and stuff like that. And so if you do get a good rate and the rates are down when you're in there looking, it's good to lock in your rate so that you have that rate and nothing changes and everything when you're going out there and getting it. So that's kind of what's going on a monthly basis. So that's really the big picture, that our market is pretty static. Our prices have not decreased, but the inventory has increased substantially, obviously, and that's kind of the big news. And the interest rates have stayed pretty stable, and the number of properties that sold in the month of April is down about 10%. So that's, like I said, something for us to keep an eye on. Now, when we're looking at the weekly stats, which we always do, there were 421 houses that sold last week. It was 460 the week before. And next week, I know it'll be high again because it's the end of the month. Every time it's the end of the month, and I know I was with our title company that we work with all the time. I was down there, late the other night, and I saw that they were there until 7 or 8 o'clock, and then they were there at like 6 or 7 in the morning getting everything ready because everybody wants to close by the end of the month. So that number is always high. But 421 is a decent number. The median price is at $420,000, and so this is just houses. And when we were looking overall, it was at 370 or 388 is what the median price was overall for the month, but the just for houses is at 420. So when you're looking at that and how that kind of shakes down, basically that 421, there were 45 of them that sold under 250, 40 between 250 and 300, 99 between 300 and 400, 93 between 400 and 500, 115 between 500 and a million, and 29 over a million. Now that shakes down that there are 5 months of inventory. Now a normal market is actually considered between 4 and 6. So in single family homes, we're still looking at a normal market. The final list to sell price was at 96.76, so still not bad overall. And 65 days to contract is what it is for single family homes. Now when you're looking at condos, townhomes, and villas, there were 421 that sold. There were 122 that sold last week, and that was up from 106 the week before. The median price is at 275, which is down from the week before because it was over 300. And if you were listening last week, I said, that's unusual that it would be that high. And so it has come back down to 275. So it's kind of hovered between the 250 to 300 range is kind of where it's at. So this week we're exactly in the middle. And when you're looking at how those 122 shook out, there were 51 under 250, 16 between 250 and 300, 23 between 300 and 400, 22 between 400 and 500, 9 between 500 and a million, and 1 sold over a million. So when you're looking at the months of inventory on the condos, we're at 8.72 versus when we were looking at the single family homes, it's at 5.01. So you're in a much more buyer's market when it comes to the condos, townhomes, and villas than you are for the single family homes. And so you would think there was a lot more negotiating room, but they're at 96.63, whereas the single family homes were at 96.76 of asking price. So pretty close in that, which always amazes me. The days on the market, however, it's 98 for the condos, townhomes, and villas versus 65 for the single family homes. So there's some dichotomies there and all of that kind of stuff. And when I'm always talking about that, you've got to look at what's actually happening with your property and in your neighborhood and all that kind of stuff, you can see that it really makes a big difference in what you're doing in looking at that. For example, when you're looking at the under 250, there were 51 properties that sold, but on the market, there are 1,794 that are on the market available. So only 51 of them sold. And so that ends up being 8.12 months of inventory. But basically the bottom line is that when you're out there and you're saying, hey, come and look at me, you really do need to be priced appropriately in order for people to see it in the first place and look at it. And then you're going to get things gone. I was looking at some properties this week that sold in 2 days. And you might be thinking, well, how could they sell in 2 days when the average is that price? It's because they were in a desirable area where people are looking for property. It's the smallest, not the smallest, but it's the lowest priced in the neighborhood. And so it just kind of went like hotcakes. So basically the bottom line is that if you're a seller out there, you need to look at the whole picture in what you're going to do in order to make a dent in this market. And if you are a buyer, you might want to look at something that's a little higher and make a lower offer is what I would maybe suggest, because those houses probably aren't getting shown. Those sellers might be getting anxious, and it might be time to make that kind of a move. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson. I'm your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So basically, I was looking at the stats and everything that I was talking about in the last segment, and one of the things that came out this week is it said that the U.S. home prices rise 4% year over year. And this is in national numbers. So, remember I talked about in Central Florida, but in Central Florida, the houses actually have not gone up. They've stayed the same. And basically, as I was reading this article that was talking about the increase of 4% overall, in 2021, we had a pretty decent size increase. Like, I think it was, I don't know, I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head here, but it was probably in the neighborhood of 20, I think it was about 25%. If you had a $300,000 house, it went up to about 4. So it was about 25% increase. And so basically what this article is saying that the houses in the U.S. went up 4% year over year. And, and the prices rose in 89 of the 100 largest metropolitan areas over the previous 4 quarters. And the annual price increase was the greatest in Newark, New Jersey at 11.6. And the metropolitan area that experienced the most significant price decline was actually Lakeland and Winter Haven at 9%. So the interesting thing that I find about that is that that's kind of close to us, and there's a lot of people that do go ahead and they buy, not necessarily all the way to Lakeland, but people do buy in Winter Haven to commute and work in Orlando. And, it's kind of become the spread, down 27 and 1792 and all those pockets and everything south of town and everything like that. Just like on north of town, it kind of goes from Sanford to Daytona is kind of like all becoming all of Central Florida along the I-4 corridor and all of that kind of good stuff. And so basically people spread out there, and then the traffic was so horrendous going up and down I-4 to get to Orlando that it was causing the commute time to be astronomical. And I know a lot of people that did sell that bought down there because they were like, we just don't like this much of a commute. It was adding an extra 45 minutes each way, so that's an hour and a half each day. And if you take that times a week, that's 5 days, that's 6.5, I think, hours a week, or maybe it's 7.5, I don't know. I'm just doing it in my head right now. But basically, when it comes down to it, it was a lot of extra commute time. Now, that fourth lane that opened up on I-4 between the exit 55, which is 27, and basically it's almost to 429. I think it's right past Champions Gate there at 429, has definitely relieved the traffic quite a bit. So maybe that will change a little bit, but I would think that that might have something to do with the decrease in prices in those areas in that Winter Haven / Lakeland area, that it might have a little bit to do with it. And I have noticed in some of those areas in, Davenport and that kind of stuff, that you did have to take that longer commute, that definitely has affected the prices. So now that traffic has been alleviated a little bit, maybe those prices will go back up. I don't know. I mean, everything all adds together, right? So you've got to look at the whole picture. You've got to look at the whole area and seeing, kind of what's going on. But you have to, when you're looking at your particular situation, you want to see what's happening there. And, I think I mentioned it last week, but there's a property in St. Cloud that I was looking at. And basically the bottom line is that there was a lot of new construction that went on there. And it's really off of Narcoossee. So it's right off of the Lake Nona area and all of that. But it's in Osceola County, not Orange County. And basically, when I was looking into that, and there was a house that we were putting on the market, and basically the bottom line is that there are 91 houses within a mile that are on the market in that neighborhood. Now, a lot of times people would go, oh my gosh, what's wrong with that neighborhood? What's happening? All of that kind of good stuff. And basically, the bottom line is that is kind of like the new home crunch time. And that's probably what's also happening in that Lakeland, Winter Haven area, is that when people buy new construction and they buy it in an area where they haven't been before, a lot of times they're there a couple of years and they go, okay, it's not really my cup of tea. I want to be back in this other area or whatever. And so they move 2 to 3 years after that house was built. And that's kind of what's going on in that St. Cloud area that I'm talking about. And it's very possible that that's what's going on in the Winter Haven, Lakeland area and that kind of thing too. The people are just a little bit further out than they want to be. So, and those are just two areas that I'm highlighting. I mean, it's also happening, in all of the outskirts and all of that kind of good stuff. But what I've seen, I mean, I actually live in Orlando, and what I've seen in my neighborhood and everything like that is that the prices have definitely, held their value. They're not going anywhere, and there isn't any decrease at all. It's not a huge increase, but it's definitely not a decrease. So it does come down to a lot of times that location. And just like I was saying, that there is a house that I saw this week that went on the market and off the market in 4 days because it's a very desirable area. Not a lot in that area that are available. The house was in great shape. The pictures look great. All of those things that added into it. But then there are other houses that sit on the market longer, and you go, and the saddest thing to me is that people go, well, what's wrong with that house? Why is it sitting there? And, basically a lot of times it's just that the right buyer hasn't come by yet or not looking. Now, in the last few weeks with all of the graduation, and we're still kind of in the middle of it, just winding down on it, there are so many extra activities that everybody is out there doing with school ending, everybody getting into their new routines, that the market kind of slows down a little bit, and not as many properties go under contract because people are getting used to the new normal of kids being out of the school, different activities, different things that they're doing, and more things that people are doing, like going to graduation parties that don't happen all the time and all of that kind of stuff. Just like the holidays around Christmas and New Year's and that kind of stuff, the market slows down a little bit. So it will pop right back up. Right, because the other thing that's going to be happening here in the next little while is that people want to get where they want to get before the school year starts. They want to get into a good school district. They want to change. They want to do those kinds of things. And for example, I have a guy that is moving here from Miami, and he has two people that are in his household. They're a nephew and a son that he wants to get into the school district before the new year starts. So there are people that are moving here that are doing those kinds of things as well, that are looking to make a move and to do that where it makes sense. So basically, this is a good time to sell, but I'm just telling you that you have to put your best foot forward. You have to have your best price forward and all of that kind of stuff to make everything happen. So that's what we're all about, is to make things happen, pulling that Band-Aid off, fast or slow. It's up to you. But I like to make sure that we get it done fast and don't disrupt our life too often. But anyway, in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and here we go with the next segment. So anyway, one of the things that I thought was interesting that's out there, it's getting to be warmer out there this time of year. We're starting our spring showers, or summer showers, I guess is more what they are. And, so you look at it and you go, wow, the electric bills are going up. So how do I get a more energy efficient home? And basically, some of the upgrades can cut utility bills. You can raise your home values and qualify for tax credits to save money now and in the long run. I was speaking to another agent earlier this week, and she was telling me that her next door neighbor had just put on some solar panels. And then a month after they put the solar panels on, they decided to sell their house. And so they were disappointed and everything in that they weren't going to necessarily get more for their property with those solar panels. The best thing to do if you're going to get them is to know that you're going to stay in your house for a little while. Generally, here's what the deal is with solar panels. I think they're great. I think that they definitely help you with your energy bills and everything. It's a personal preference, in my opinion, in whether you want to do that or not. But there's a couple things that you need to keep in mind about the solar panels. And that is, when you go to sell your house, it may or may not add value to the house. There are some people that like them and some people don't, just like it's kind of like swimming pools. Some people like them and some people don't. The other thing that you need to definitely keep in mind on that is that if it costs, 40 or 50 or 60 or thousand or more to put those solar panels on, basically, if it is going to add value to your house, then that's going to be something that people are going to have to qualify more for. I mentioned earlier that I was speaking to a mortgage broker earlier, and she said that, it's kind of disappointing at times when she's talking to prospective buyers and they don't qualify on their own, because the interest rates are high and the amount of a house that they want to buy, they don't make enough money for that. And so when you add solar panels onto that, then that definitely makes it so that it might be a house that somebody could afford without the solar panels, but with the solar panels, they cannot. I was this lady that I was talking to, that the guy decided to sell the property a month after he put solar panels on. They really didn't talk too much about it, and they had a contract on the house, and they were going to closing, and it ended up that the buyer was not able to afford the house then with the solar panels on it, unless the seller paid off the solar panels. Because if there is a solar panel payment, and they were like, well, it's just a lease and all of that kind of stuff, it shouldn't be a big deal. But the big deal is that a person has to qualify for the mortgage, and then they also have to qualify in their ratios that are dictated by the government and everything like that, which are good because it makes sure that you're not spending all of your money on your house. But basically, they're making sure that, that you've got a little bit of cushion in your finances. They're not going to put you under penalty and all of that kind of good stuff for that. So basically what happened is that this solar panel payment was an additional $400. So that made the house as if it was worth another, I don't know how much, but I would guess probably in the neighborhood of 30 or 40,000 more at least than it was without the solar panels in the payment that had to be made. So what happened was that the buyer had to walk away. They weren't able to get approved for the loan because of those solar panels. So then what happened is that the seller put the house back on the market, and they decided to pay off the solar panels. And so they're not going to have that issue with the next buyer, that they're not going to be able to afford those solar panels because there is no longer a bill. And so, that might be what you need to do. And so then that might make it so that your house stands out because you've got the solar panels and another house doesn't. So basically, when it comes down to it, I think that you just really need to evaluate all of the options. If you're going to stay in your house, then that's absolutely perfect. So that's the perfect scenario. If you're thinking about moving or looking at moving in the next couple of years, it might be something that you really want to do your homework on. Maybe check with someone like myself to make sure that the value is there in your house, that you're going to get your money out of it. But there are some energy efficiency things that you can do that are beyond solar panels. And the first thing that you can do is a home energy audit. And many local utility companies offer these to help identify areas for improvement, such as air leaks around windows or doors, poor insulation, or inefficient appliances. Starting there can pinpoint where to focus your energy and improvement efforts. Then you might want to make some lifestyle changes. Some upgrades cost money. Others simply require you to change some of your habits. For example, turning off your lights, unplugging unused devices, and closing your blinds during the summer to reduce heat transfer are all easy ways to start saving by reducing energy consumption. Other easy fixes can mean changing out your furnace filter regularly, lowering the temperature on your thermostat and water heater, using low-flow faucets to conserve water, and even planting trees strategically to gain some shade. The next thing that you can do that isn't very expensive is use LED lighting. The case for energy-efficient lighting is strong, with LED bulbs using up to 90% less energy and lasting up to 25 times longer than traditional incandescent lighting. I was thinking the other day, I put some LEDs in my kitchen, and I don't remember when I did it, but it was a long time ago. And I was like going, those lights have definitely lasted a long time. I don't know when they're going to go out, and I'm hoping they don't. But I know it has been several years when I put in those lights, and that they're still shining brightly the same as always and all of that kind of good stuff. So there's something to say for LED lighting for sure. Another thing that you can do is re-insulate. A home's insulation can shrink over time, resulting in heat loss during the winter and heat retention during warmer months. Properly insulating your attic walls and floors can cut your energy bills and make your home more comfortable in the process. And I know the last time that I got an air conditioner, that they redid the insulation in my house. And basically the air conditioner is probably about due, they come due every 10 to 15 years and whatever. And but I had somebody recently in my attic looking at some stuff, and they said the insulation was really good. So, it never hurts to do that. That's a good thing that you can do. Replacing your windows. Older homes tend to leak 2 to 4 times more air than newer homes. So you can improve energy efficiency by sealing leaks with weather stripping and caulking. If your windows are older, you may want to also consider replacing them. Newer windows rely on more advanced technology that controls heat transfer, which could help reduce energy usage up to 30%. I know one of my customers that I was working with, they told me that they changed out their windows in their house, and their bill went down 90% in doing that. So that's something that you can do. And I was talking to somebody else because I thought, why do you really need to change your windows? I mean, is the glass broken? Does it really matter? And all of that kind of good stuff. And what they were telling me is that they had leaks in their window. And I was like, well, how did that happen? Because, did somebody throw something through the glass or did the glass break? And they said, no, that it was around it. It was the seals. So just like this is talking about right here, you might want to do something to make sure that your windows are sealed. Number 6 is upgrading your appliances. Just like older windows are less efficient, so are older appliances. So you might want to go to Energy Star Appliances. And then review your heating and cooling systems. Upgrading them can often deliver greater energy efficiency, but there's other changes that you can also make. So you could put in ceiling fans, consume 99% less energy than central air conditioning systems. Even switching to a smart thermostat can help by automating and regulating your home's temperature control. Then upgrading your water heater is another way to go. And then we talked about solar. So there are so many things that you can do out there. The solar might be the most expensive, but you can maybe just put it on a few panels and it does a couple of things instead of doing everything. So there's lots of options and everything out there for you to do to help with the energy. And now that we're getting into the heat of the summer, it might be a great thing for you to do. I know we're not to summer officially for another 20 days or so, but we're feeling it. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So basically, when it comes to your home and everything, and making it so that it's yours and ready to sell and all of that kind of good stuff, one of the things that when you're putting your house out there for its best, at its best, is that you definitely want to look at lighting and how that works. I know there's, I just talked in the last segment of during the summer, you might want to close your blinds because it's going to keep it a little bit cooler inside. But if you're going to sell your house, I would not keep the blinds closed. I would keep them wide open. And the reason for that is because people like to see natural light. They definitely do. You would think that, maybe it's too much or whatever with the sun shining, but people like to have natural light. I mean, I know in my office, I've got the blinds all the way up and everything like that and constantly letting it in. Now, there's times where I feel like I'm cooking because that sun's shining on my back, but I still like it better than having it closed. And basically, if someone's looking at your house, they want to see that natural light. They want to see it's in there. We still turn on the lights when it comes to someone looking at your house because we don't want them to notice that there's anything that could be dark. We want to make sure that it's light. And I remember a friend of mine that had, they didn't have a covered lanai. They had it that it was open. And so they went ahead and they covered it, and it was amazing how much darker it made the house when they did that. And so, when you're looking at that, you definitely want to make sure that you've got as much light coming in. And I know there were some people from Canada that I was showing houses to, and the windows, they were actually, like really big, decent sized windows and everything in the house. But there were probably about 2 or 3 feet between the bottom of the window to the floor, which, not a big deal, pretty much good sized windows, right? But they were going, oh my gosh, I wish that these windows were a lot bigger and letting in a lot more light. We just want that natural light. And I'm like thinking, well, you're not living here in the summer, and you haven't lived here before because you might not want them quite that big. But, letting the light in is definitely something that everybody strives for. So when you are getting ready to put your house on the market, you want to make sure that you've got that. Then you also want to have ambient lighting that is kind of in your house, and that's kind of a blanket lighting that's used to evenly illuminate a room. So basically that's the general lighting that every home needs. Fixture like overhead lights, floor lamps, and more provide enough light for people to function safely indoors. But ambient lighting is the foundation for every interior design lighting scenario. And the fixtures should be featured toward the center of the room and closer to the ceiling to disperse the light more evenly. Task lighting, you guys know about that. What that is that's directed towards a specific area to get more detail to objects, whether that's like over a stove or crafting or reading or desk work might require task lighting, so projects are effectively illuminated. So they can be installed anywhere if a person requires direct, intense light to see details, and it means lights can be under cabinetry or on a desk for reading to do homework. Then you have the accent lighting, and that balances lighting and spotlights certain points in a space. For example, accent lighting can be utilized to highlight collectibles or artwork. It also can call attention to entryways, plants, fireplaces, and other points. Accent lighting typically adds the character to a room and is not necessarily bright enough to sufficiently illuminate the space. Wow. And then you've got decorative lighting is the last kind that we have here. And that is used exclusively for aesthetic purposes, and that adds style and drama to spaces. Decorative lighting fixtures include pendants, sconces, chandeliers, and more. Decorative lighting may also be whimsical, such as fairy lights strung in a child's bedroom or neon lights homes in a sports room. And separately, these lighting options may not be enough to suit your needs, but when combined, these types of lighting help to establish an interesting and functional home interior design that fits with a person's lifestyle and needs. And I know some teenagers that I know, they definitely have the LED strips that are going all around their rooms and that can do all the different colors and all of that kind of stuff, and that just give that room a glow and make it their own special and all of that kind of good stuff. And I've got some neighbors that have that kind of lighting that is outside of the house that they use a lot of times for the holidays. And regardless of the holiday, they can turn it whatever color they want to. If it's St. Patrick's Day, it's green. If it's Valentine's Day, it's red, and on and on and on. So, you know, it's like lighting is very different. But when it comes to selling your house, you definitely want to put your house in the best light that you can do it. And lighting definitely helps with that, and natural light above all. So basically, you know, the biggest thing that I see a lot of times is plantation shutters that are beautiful, that people want, that definitely give you the privacy, and they look very elegant and all of that kind of good stuff. But almost when you go to sell your house, I would open them all up, have it all available so that anybody can basically see that house is very light and bright and all of that kind of good stuff. Because that's what people look for when they go and look at houses. I've been with buyers before that have gone into a house and they go, "Oh, I can't live here. It's too dark." And you're like, "Well, it's pretty light to me," but to them it's too dark. So whatever you can do to make it light, you can do that, because all you've got to do is close the blinds to get rid of it, and it's not really a big deal. But when it comes to somebody looking at the property, that's what they want to have. So I say go ahead and give it to them, right? You want to give the buyer what they want in order to find what they need in that particular property. But so I'm out of time for today, but it's June, and it's hard to believe the year is speeding right along, right? We're almost halfway done when we get to July and everything like that. But it's hurricane season officially starts today as well. So we're hoping and praying that we don't have any bad hurricane season. But, you know, regardless, it's great to be in Florida. There's a lot of people that want to live here. There's a lot of property that transfers between people. And whatever your housing needs are, we can help you solve it, find it, and make things happen. And that's what I think is great. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com. and we will see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.